Well, hey guys, we're in downtown Aberdeen, Mississippi today, where almost everywhere you look is an old building with a story or a folk tale connected to it. These stories are often terribly impactful within our local history and certainly within the history of the state. And some of you guys know that I started this channel several years ago so that I could expose my kids to these types of stories about the great state of Mississippi. See, I believe there is no place in this big old world with as small a number of people as the great state of Mississippi that has impacted the world greater. Today we're going to rummage around through the old Parkway Hotel right here on Commerce Street in Aberdeen and tell you about some of the stories associated with it. See, the Parkway Hotel was built somewhere around 1927 or 28. And it was once a grand place. The lobby here has marble, I call them mosaic tiled floors, and some people say that it could be haunted. This place was certainly once elegant in its presentation, and if you look around closely, the additions here in the lobby are just superficial in nature. While doing research of this old building, I discovered that Aberdeen Main Street, a local community organization, started raising money a couple years ago to purchase this property. At the time, the Tom Bigby Inn, which was an old L-shaped structure, we'll call it, just outside the Parkway here, was still in business. That structure has since been demolished, and from what I can understand, at least from doing a little internet research of this old building, Aberdeen Main Street has begun the process of revitalizing this place, and of course, they seem to be looking for investors. Now, I know very little about the effort for sure. I just know what I was able to find on the internet. We are obviously now walking through what at some point was a kitchen area that someone added to this section of the hotel, and I find it kind of interesting to see the parts of this structure that were put in place during the different time periods of its existence. If any of you that happen upon this video care to guess, tell me what time frame that kitchen was added in the comments. I'll give you a quick look around the building, at least as much as my little flashlight will let us see, and as much as I think it's safe. Although now structurally, this place seems to be sound. Obviously, if someone were going to redo this place, there would be tons of work to do superficially. But I found a structural integrity report online, and it said that this place could stand for another 100 years, just as it is. Honestly, I tend to agree. I will say this place is a little bit creepy once you get upstairs here. My lighting is just so poor. It certainly is an interesting old building, and if restored, it will definitely have a tremendous economic impact on this area. Let's hope they can do something with it. One thing to remember, this old hotel is not too terribly far from Mississippi State or Ole Miss, either one, and although this creepy old bathroom would need some work, this place could be an outstanding venue to handle overflow game day crowds. Honestly, I'm struck by how small these hotel rooms once were. I think you can get the general idea of the inside. The windows have been boarded up. Things have been partially removed, but of course the place is dirty. And at least for me, not just a little bit spooky in its current state. Now on to the folk tale that brought us to the Parkway Hotel today. A few years ago, when we started this channel, one of the first videos we did, my kids and I went to Roanoke, the home of one of Mississippi's greatest writers, William Faulkner. Now, my goodness, if you don't know who William Faulkner is, Google him, at least. He's one of Mississippi's Pulitzer Prize-winning writers, and I think probably the most impactful author of his era. He is certainly one of my favorites. Faulkner's novels were set in his fictional Yoknapatawpha County, Mississippi. Now, as I said, he is a Nobel laureate and, well, I think the greatest Southern writer that there's been. How is he connected to this once grand, now abandoned hotel? Well, after he met writers like Robert Frost and Ezra Pound and even Sherwood Anderson, he hooked back up with his high school sweetheart. He had recently finished work on The Sound and the Fury, and on June 20th, 1929, he married Estelle Oldham, who was recently divorced and brought with her 2 children from her first marriage. Now, Estelle and William's marriage produced a daughter named Jill. But nonetheless, the story my kids and I came across when we were doing the research for that video on Roanoke all those years ago was that William and Estelle were traveling from the site of their wedding on their wedding day and stopped in a local hotel to spend their honeymoon night. Now, 3 or 4 years ago, the only options we could find for that hotel where Faulkner spent his honeymoon was the hotel you're walking through right now, or possibly an old hotel that has since been demolished in Amory. Now, locals here in Aberdeen tell me that the story has always existed that Faulkner spent his honeymoon here. One older lady, who would have to be in the 85 to 90-year-old range, told me that her father told her of William Faulkner spending his honeymoon in the Old Parkway Hotel. Nonetheless, as the story goes, Faulkner and his new bride entered the lobby downstairs, and as he signed in the guest registry, he noticed that some friends of his from the Columbus area were also here in the hotel. Now, he sent Estelle on up the stairs to their room and sought out his friends who were downstairs on the first floor playing cards and socializing and, well, drinking whiskey. And if you know anything about William Faulkner, you know he was definitely a whiskey connoisseur. The story went something like, as Faulkner was attempting to join his companions, one of them asked, "Aren't you here on your honeymoon night with your new wife?" To which he replied, "She will be here in the morning, the good whiskey won't." Now, in all fairness, as I was looking back through some research on Faulkner, I found a story that was, I guess, authored by Estelle, where she says they spent their honeymoon night in Tupelo. But now, a couple years ago, when I was doing the Faulkner research, I found some articles written by what I'll call a pro-Faulkner group that said they thought he spent his honeymoon in Amory and that he, in fact, did not stay downstairs with his friends. And another group of articles that indicated that he did indeed stay right here and that he did, in fact, enjoy that bottle of whiskey. If you know anything about Faulkner's story, you know that his wife probably attempted suicide on their honeymoon, most of which they spent on the coast of Mississippi. Now, I don't know the answer to what really happened. I do know that the folks in this community have always told the story of William Faulkner spending his honeymoon in this hotel. I do know that he and Estelle stayed married until death did in fact part them, and that Estelle played a major role in some of his artwork. See, I consider his writing artwork, especially when you consider the context of the times he was living in when he wrote his novels, and of course the times he was writing about. And my goodness, if you stuck around this long, why don't you bump that like button and tell me whether or not you think William and Estelle Faulkner spent their honeymoon in this old hotel. At any rate, I hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit about Faulkner and looking around this old hotel today, and I sure do hope they find some investment money and do something with this place. Thank you.